sons and daughters, colleagues, veterans will all have a part to play, and more families will know what sacrifice for our nation means.
Kind of threat that doesn't explode, it erodes. A slow, calculated breakdown of trust, stability, and cohesion. And right now, that trust is crumbling. In just 72 hours, 3 major national alerts hit the UK. Not weather warnings, not transport disruptions, with tensions rising across the UK and thousands taking to the streets of London right now. It's more important than ever to see the full picture. If you want to stay updated on the situation as it unfolds, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. I'm covering the angles a mainstream media might miss, like this video if you believe in unfiltered reporting. We're talking full-scale security alerts triggering a sweeping readiness posture across multiple cities. Behind the scenes, cyber attacks, infrastructure vulnerabilities, and growing fears of external manipulation, with one name repeatedly coming up: Russia. Defense officials are no longer speaking in hypotheticals. The language has shifted. This isn't about what IFS. It's about when. The country is being told to prepare, not just militarily, but mentally. Because in this new era, wars aren't only fought on battlefields. They are fought in server rooms, news feeds, and living rooms. A major data breach recently exposed private and sensitive government records, including criminal histories. It wasn't just embarrassing. It was a direct blow to public trust. When your own government systems can't protect the data it holds on you, how can you believe they'll protect anything else? And let's be clear, these aren't just tech glitches. Intelligence agencies are tracking a 47% rise in cyber threats, with hostile state actors zeroing in on vital civilian infrastructure. We're talking hospitals, power grids, transport networks. Simulations show that sustained attacks could lead to mass disruption, even civilian deaths, not from bombs, but from system failures. Electricity gone, hospitals down, communication lines cut. Chaos, not with a bang, but with a blackout. But cyber pressure is just the beginning. Britain's military isn't just on alert, it's expanding, but not in the way people expected. There's a quiet but controversial shift toward recruiting migrants into the armed forces. For some, it's a necessary response to recruitment shortages. For others, it's a red flag. Protests have erupted over what many see as yet another disconnect between government policies and public sentiment. The messaging from leadership is about unity, shared sacrifice, and resilience. But the reality on the ground tells a different story. People feel left behind. They see military expansion paired with warnings of sacrifice. I know things feel really heavy in the UK right now. There's a lot of division and noise on the streets, but I want this channel to be a place where we can come together. If you want to be part of a supportive community, please subscribe. And like this video to show some love to everyone feeling anxious about the state of things right now. Stay safe out there, everyone. And then watch decisions unfold without transparency. That's not a recipe for national cohesion. That's a pressure cooker of distrust. At the center of all this is a chilling concept: hybrid warfare. It doesn't look like traditional war, but it's no less dangerous. It's subtle, drawn out, psychological. Russia's playbook isn't about brute force, it's about gradual degradation. The goal isn't to conquer, it's to collapse. Internally, silently, hybrid warfare hits where it hurts: trust. It exploits weak points in society, not just in technology. It turns doubt into division, questions into protests. And suddenly, a strong nation starts looking fragmented, uncertain, vulnerable, all without a shot fired. What's especially dangerous is that the battlefield has shifted. Civilian infrastructure is now front and center. The people? They're not just bystanders, they're targets. And if civilians don't trust the institutions meant to protect them, then resilience becomes a myth. It's no longer about how many jets or tanks you have. It's about how cohesive your society is, how willing people are to cooperate during crises. And right now, that willingness is slipping. Fast. The real weapon here is erosion, not just of systems, but of belief. Hybrid tactics don't need to destroy buildings. They just need to break confidence. And it's working. Discontent over military recruitment, skepticism towards cyber readiness, disillusionment with leadership, It's all part of a slow grind that weakens from within. Top military officials are calling for civilian involvement in defense. Families, veterans, everyday people, not as a draft, but as part of a national effort toward resilience. But how do you rally people who don't feel heard, who don't feel safe, who don't trust? This is where it gets strategic. When a government asks for sacrifice, it has to demonstrate fairness, equity, transparency. Otherwise, the public withdraws. And once that happens, you don't just lose morale, you lose a capacity to defend. The disconnect between policy and perception is growing. People hear one thing, shared sacrifice, national duty, and see another, secretive decisions, unequal burdens, and opaque strategies. That gap is dangerous, because hybrid warfare thrives in that space. It doesn't have to create new problems. It just has to exploit existing ones. Right now, the UK's institutional... You've seen the headlines, but the atmosphere down here is completely different. Subscribe so you don't miss the raw footage I'm releasing later this week, and like this video to help push this unfiltered reporting up the algorithm. Credibility is under strain. Emergency systems are robust on paper, but the real test is public buy-in. If citizens don't believe in the system, they won't follow its lead. And in a crisis, that lag can be fatal. This isn't just a British issue. It's a global warning. In democratic societies, the strength of a defense isn't just military, it's moral. Legitimacy is the front line. And once that collapses, there's no quick fix. The resilience conversation has shifted. It's not just about backup generators and rapid response times. It's about trust, consent, legitimacy, the public's belief that the system will work and work for them. Russia's tactics rely on one assumption, that trust is fragile, that with enough pressure, cyber, psychological, systemic, society will turn inward. Doubt will grow, and institutions will falter. That's a long game. Not dramatic invasions, but slow disintegration. Not explosions, but exhaustion. And here's the thing, Britain knows this. That's why there's a push for internal resilience. But knowing the threat isn't the same as countering it. Defense strategies are evolving, yes, but the pace of erosion is fast, and public patience is thin. The current climate is a warning siren. This is what hybrid warfare looks like before the headlines declare it. This is the prelude to collapse, not of infrastructure, but of faith. If the government fails to rebuild that faith, no amount of military spending or cybersecurity will matter. Because once public trust breaks, recovery is slow. And adversaries, they won't wait. So here we are, not at war in the traditional sense, but at the edge of something just as destabilizing. A pressure test for the nation's soul. The question isn't whether Britain is prepared militarily. The real question is, does the public still believe? If that belief falters, resilience isn't just weakened, it's gone. Let's talk about it. What do you think is the most urgent step to rebuild trust right now? Are we truly prepared for this kind of threat? Or is the real danger already inside the house? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if you found this breakdown useful. And don't forget to subscribe for more real talk on the global chaos we're all living through. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and we'll see you in the next one. The scariest part? Most people don't even realize this is war. There's no air raid siren blaring through the streets, no conscription letter arriving in the mail. But the attack is already happening, in silence. And the front lines are everywhere. Your Wi-Fi router, your hospital's software, your bank's login page. With tensions rising across the UK and thousands taking to the streets of London right now, it's more important than ever to see the full picture. If you want to stay updated on the situation as it unfolds, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. I'm covering the angles the mainstream media might miss, like this video if you believe in unfiltered reporting. This isn't about missiles. It's about manipulation. And it's working, slowly, expertly, ruthlessly. Let's zoom in on that. Britain's government systems have been breached. Private, sensitive data, including criminal records, exposed. For the public, this isn't just a bureaucratic failure. It's personal. It's invasive. It's a reminder that the systems meant to protect them are vulnerable. And when the government's digital fortress cracks like that, it doesn't just open the door for more attacks. It opens a pit of doubt in every citizen's mind. That's the real objective of hybrid warfare. Not destruction, destabilization. Think about it. If you can't trust your government to guard your personal data, how can you trust it to handle something as complex as national security? Or a large-scale cyber incident? Or, God forbid, a coordinated infrastructure collapse? And let's not forget, these breaches aren't isolated. They are part of a pattern. Intelligence reports are painting a dire picture. Cyber threats from hostile state actors are up nearly 50%. That's not a blip. That's an offensive. Hospitals are being targeted. Power grids, water systems, transport networks, all critical infrastructure now sitting ducks in a digital shooting gallery. And here's a nightmare scenario that's not getting enough attention. It won't be a single catastrophic event that breaks the system. It'll be 1,000 small failures, chained together. A login fails here. A grid goes down there. An ambulance system slows. A city goes dark. And suddenly, the country isn't just under attack. It's unraveling. Now overlay that chaos with a public already skeptical of leadership. Mix in frustration, inequality, and a few very public policy misfires. And what you've got isn't just vulnerability. You've got a national identity crisis, tailor-made for exploitation. And yet, the government's messaging remains oddly confident. The top brass are giving speeches about shared sacrifice and resilience, while pushing forward plans to integrate migrant recruits into the armed forces. Let's be clear, this isn't about the recruits themselves. It's about perception, the timing, the rollout, the lack of clarity. It's creating friction, because to many, it doesn't feel like a plan. It feels like a scramble. And people notice. Protests are rising. Resistance is brewing. Not against defense itself, but against what feels like policy made in a vacuum. People want to be part of the solution, but they want to know what they're being. I know things feel really heavy in the UK right now. There's a lot of division and noise on the streets, but I want this channel to be a place where we can come together. If you want to be part of a supportive community, please subscribe. And like this video to show some love to everyone feeling anxious about the state of things right now. Stay safe out there, everyone. Ask to sacrifice. And why? And for whom? Instead, what they're getting is vague promises and increased pressure. And in that void of transparency, distrust festers. That's the second layer of hybrid warfare, the psychological one. When people are confused, afraid, and skeptical, they turn inward. They disconnect. They disengage. And suddenly, your so-called resilience isn't a strength, it's a buzzword. Because let's be honest, how resilient is society if no one trusts the people running it? Britain's defense officials have started to frame the conversation around civilians, not just as bystanders, but as actors in national security. They are right to do so, because in this new kind of warfare, everyone is involved. But rhetoric alone doesn't build trust. Actions do. Communication does. Equity does. And right now, those are the things in short supply. That gap between government strategy and public perception is exactly what makes Britain vulnerable, not to invasion, but to corrosion. Hybrid warfare doesn't need to plant false stories. It just amplifies existing tension. It doesn't need to create division. It shines a spotlight on the fractures that already exist. When you add it all up, the outlook isn't just unsettling, it's urgent. Because here's what hybrid warfare understands better than most governments. Legitimacy is fragile. Once public faith breaks, it's almost impossible to patch together quickly. You can't mobilize a divided population. You can't stabilize a fractured society. You can't defend a public that doesn't believe you anymore. So what are the consequences of letting the spiral? Well, the simulations aren't pretty. Systemic cyber attacks, even without physical damage, could cause massive fatalities. Think hospitals without power. Emergency calls that don't go through. Supply chain stalled. Everything connected. Everything hackable. And here's where it gets even darker. The collapse wouldn't feel like a dramatic movie. It wouldn't be sudden. It would be slow, confusing, bureaucratic. A dozen systems just failing, and the public left scrambling, unsure who to trust or what to do. That's not speculation. That's what defense planners are actually running drills on. And those drills are based on a very simple, very grim truth. If trust collapses, everything else does too. Infrastructure might still exist. But if no one believes in it, if no one relies on it, It's already broken. Which brings us to the most uncomfortable question of all. You've seen the headlines, but the atmosphere down here is completely different. Subscribe so you don't miss the raw footage I'm releasing later this week, and like this video to help push this unfiltered reporting up the algorithm. Who will people stand with? Because in moments of crisis, trust is currency, and right now, the government is running dangerously low on it. When people start asking whether leadership is hiding information, whether sacrifices are being fairly distributed, whether plans are made behind closed doors, that's when allegiance becomes optional. That's when collective strength becomes individual survival. And that's when hybrid warfare wins. Because the ultimate goal isn't control, it's collapse. Not of borders, but of belief. That's what makes this moment so precarious. Britain isn't just under cyber attack. It's under a stress test of its entire identity, its unity, its legitimacy, its sense of purpose. And here's the kicker. Even the best cybersecurity won't matter if the society it protects is already divided. Resilience doesn't come from hardware. It comes from cohesion. And right now, that cohesion is brittle. What's needed isn't just better defense systems. It's better trust systems. Transparency. Shared understanding. Real conversations. Because if the public doesn't believe in the mission, there's no mission. This is a challenge for modern democracies. Defense isn't just about repelling threats. It's about earning the right to be followed during crisis. And that comes down to legitimacy. But legitimacy requires effort. It requires leaders who communicate clearly, act fairly, and acknowledge when trust has been lost. It requires policies that match the rhetoric. And above all, it requires respecting the people enough to level with them. Even when the truth is hard, because the alternative is what we're already seeing. Confusion, suspicion, fragmentation. And that's exactly the battlefield Russia is counting on. Not the English Channel, not the airspace, but the fragile space between government and people. Hybrid warfare doesn't need a declaration. It just needs delay. It feeds on hesitation, exploit confusion, and thrives when a country can't decide whether to believe its own institutions. This is a long game. The erosion won't happen overnight. But unless something changes, unless there's a real reckoning with the public's growing distrust, the foundation will keep cracking. And by the time a true crisis hits, it might be too late to hold anything together. So, here we are. Britain isn't falling apart. Not yet. But it's being tested in ways that most people don't fully see. The danger isn't just across the border. It's within the systems, the silences, and the disconnects. And the real question now is, will Britain confront it head-on, or let it slip further into the shadows? Because in this kind of war, silence is the most dangerous weapon of all. With tensions rising across the UK and thousands taking to the streets of London right now, it's more important than ever to see the full picture. If you want to stay updated on the situation as it unfolds, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. I'm covering the angles the mainstream media might miss, like this video if you believe in unfiltered reporting. So here's where it all starts to get real. Because it's not just about policy decisions anymore. It's about survival instincts. Not in some dystopian, sci-fi future, but right now, in boardrooms, war rooms, and public forums where trust is bleeding out like a slow leak no one fixing. At this point, you've got to ask, is anyone actually listening? Because for all the speeches about national unity and shared sacrifice, the people watching from the outside aren't feeling it. They are seeing a government that talks about resilience while quietly reshuffling recruitment policies, outsourcing defense roles, and expecting civilians to rise to the occasion, all while being kept in the dark about the scale of the threat. And you know what happens when people don't feel respected? They stop showing up. Not just physically, mentally, emotionally, socially. They check out. And in a hybrid war, public disengagement is a national security threat. This is what hybrid warfare weaponizes better than anything else. Disengagement. It doesn't need to stir mass protests or riots. It just needs you to stop caring, stop believing, stop participating. And once that indifference spreads, it's game over. You don't need tanks when the population doesn't trust the people in charge of the tank keys. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. How much legitimacy does Britain still have in the eyes of its people? Because in the past few years, that trust has been worn thin, from pandemic responses to political scandals to economic pressure. And now, With the threat of cyber warfare looming, people are being asked to believe in a system that's already let them down more than once. Military officials are urging society to see itself as part of the defense structure. That sounds noble. But when the institutions you're being asked to support are the same ones that mishandled data, downplayed threats, and made policy decisions behind closed doors, the instinct isn't pride, it's suspicion. And that suspicion is contagious. This is why Russia doesn't need to launch a single missile. They just need to lean on what's already broken, widen the cracks, turned out into distance, and let the rest unfold naturally. That's the brilliance of hybrid warfare. It's a whisper campaign against your own foundation. Now think about infrastructure. Roads, hospitals, energy grids. They don't just run on electricity. They run on confidence. The assumption that when you flip a switch, lights come on, that ambulances arrive, that your records are protected. But what happens when those assumptions are no longer safe? It's not hypothetical anymore. Intelligence simulations are showing how sustained cyber attacks could lead to complete breakdowns of core services. Think about what that looks like. No communication between emergency services. No reliable electricity in critical wards. No access to essential data in high-stakes moments. Not because of bombs, but because of cascading digital failures. You don't need to destroy the machine. You just need to jam it long enough for it to stall at the worst possible moment. And here's what really makes this dangerous. The degradation isn't always obvious. It's not a headline-grabbing disaster. It's subtle, gradual. Systems slow down. Information becomes unreliable. Authorities appear confused or inconsistent. And the public? They don't know whether to panic or wait. That limbo is exactly what hybrid warfare thrives on. And while all this is unfolding, Britain's internal tensions are heating up. Migrant military recruitment is one of those flashpoints. Again, this isn't about xenophobia or immigration debates. It's about timing, transparency, and trust. When people already feel unheard and undervalued, watching the defense apparatus get restructured without a clear explanation doesn't inspire confidence. It creates a sense that decisions are being made above their heads, and not in their interest. That kind of resentment is exactly the emotional soil hybrid warfare needs to flourish. It turns every government announcement into a suspicion, every security measure into a conspiracy theory, and every crisis into a credibility test. And the problem is, you only get so many of those tests before the system flatlines. People need to feel like the rules are fair, that the sacrifices are shared, that their concerns are being addressed. Otherwise, resilience becomes an empty word, something you slap on a press release while society slowly comes apart at the seams. And let's be honest, how do you rebuild that trust when every move looks reactive, not proactive? Because let's not forget, cyber attacks didn't just start last week. The warnings have been coming for years. And yet here we are, scrambling to reassure the public after major breaches, after emergency alerts, after critical systems have already been compromised. That's not preparation. That's damage control. So what would real preparedness look like? First, communication. Clear, honest, consistent, not filtered through spin, not buried in jargon, just the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. People can handle bad news. They can't handle feeling like they're being lied to or left out of the loop. Second, equity. If you're going to ask people to sacrifice, whether it's in taxes, time, or trust, you better show them that everyone is being held to the same standard. No backroom exemptions. No preferential treatment. Because once people believe there's a double standard, social cohesion breaks down fast. Third, transparency in leadership. People don't just want to know what decisions are being made. They want to know why. If recruitment strategies are changing, explain the rationale. If policies are shifting, own it. Don't pretend like it's all going according to plan when clearly the plan is being rewritten in real time. Because if the government doesn't fill in those blanks, hostile actors will. That's the terrifying simplicity of disinformation. It doesn't have to be convincing. It just has to be the only thing that makes sense when official sources go silent. That's how trust collapses. And that's how a country loses its grip without anyone firing a single shot. Now look, no one's saying Britain is doomed. But the warning lights are flashing. Loudly. The tension between external threats and internal instability is becoming too obvious to ignore. And if leadership doesn't course correct soon, we may look back at this moment as a calm before the fracture. Because when a society stops believing in its own story, when its citizens start asking not how can I help, but why should I bother, that's when it becomes vulnerable in a way no firewall or fighter jet can fix. And we're closer to that edge than anyone wants to admit. So what happens now? That's the question hanging over everything. Can Britain rally, rebuild trust, and re-establish cohesion before the next wave hits? Or will it continue to drift toward a crisis where the real enemy isn't Russia, but disbelief? Time's ticking. The choices made now will decide what kind of country steps forward from this pressure test, one that's divided, distracted, and destabilized, or one that took the warning sign seriously and shored up what really matters. Not just its systems, not just its military, but its people, its credibility, its soul. That's where the real war is being fought, and it's far from over. So let's not sugarcoat this. What we're witnessing isn't just a government under pressure. It's a society grappling with a full-blown legitimacy crisis, while trying to hold the line against a modern, shape-shifting enemy that doesn't play by any of the old rules. This isn't the Cold War. It's not red lines and nuclear standoffs. It's gray zones, blurred intentions, 1,000 needles instead of one sword. And Britain, for all its defense budgets and intelligence infrastructure, is facing a threat it can't shoot, bomb, or arrest. Because you can't fight erosion with firepower. What's being attacked is intangible: faith, trust, cohesion. And once those go, the rest follows. Let's be real, the social contract is stretched thin. People are being asked to prepare for shared sacrifice, to be resilient, to stand strong together, while seeing policies that feel disconnected from their daily reality. The optics of it all? Not great. You can't tell people we're in this together and then roll out decisions that look like they were made in a vacuum, far from the people they affect most. Case in point, recruiting migrants into the military during a time of national anxiety. On paper, it's about numbers, readiness, filling ranks. But context matters. And context right now is fragile. When people are scared, when they feel unheard, when they are being bombarded with warnings of looming threats and blackouts in digital warfare, they want clarity. They want consistency. And above all, they want to feel like they matter in the equation. Without that, you don't get unity. You get alienation. And that alienation is exactly what hybrid warfare feeds on. It's like oxygen to the fire. Let's break it down. Hybrid warfare is slow, subtle, and strategic. It doesn't want to destroy your infrastructure outright. It wants to make you question whether that infrastructure even works. It wants you to wonder if your leaders are competent, if your systems are stable, if your neighbors are still on the same team. It's not conquest, it's corrosion. And the scary thing is, it works best in democratic societies, because democracies rely on buy-in, consent, belief. If people start opting out, refusing to engage, doubting every message, disbelieving every institution, the democratic system doesn't just weaken. It ruts. That's what's at stake here. Not just cybersecurity or military readiness, but democratic cohesion, the invisible thread that ties people together in crisis. That's what adversaries are targeting. And in many ways, they are succeeding without ever touching British soil. Because you can't always see hybrid warfare happening. It looks like a news cycle, a protest, a conspiracy theory, a leaked document, a power outage, a broken trust. It's not that any one moment feels like an attack. It's that, over time, the line between attack and accident starts to blur. And when you can't tell the difference anymore, that's when you've already lost control of the narrative. And narrative, by the way, is everything. The government might think it's in control of the message, but in a hybrid war, perception is power. If people perceive that their institutions are lying, stalling, or failing, that becomes reality. Whether it's accurate or not doesn't matter. What matters is that trust has already been replaced by doubt. So when national alerts go out, when cyber attacks get disclosed, when new military policies get announced, and the public responds not with unity, but with suspicion, that's a red flag. Not just politically, but strategically. And yet, here's a harsh irony. Even with all this happening, many people still don't take the threat seriously. Because it doesn't feel like war. There are no explosions. No parades of soldiers through the streets. Just static on the line. A late ambulance. A glitchy ATM. An email leak. A recruitment ad that sparks a protest instead of a sign-up. It all feels disconnected, inconvenient, maybe even coincidental. But that's the genius of it. It's war by 1,000 paper cuts. A slow bleed that eventually turns fatal. And the longer it goes unacknowledged, the more power it has. And let's be honest, Britain isn't the only country grappling with this. But it is one of the most exposed. With global visibility, economic ties, and historical baggage, it's a perfect storm of vulnerabilities. And the pressure is mounting. Not just from outside, but from within. The public isn't just nervous. They are tired. Tired of mixed messages. Tired of being told to prepare without being told how. Tired of watching decisions made without real explanation. And tired of feeling like they're being asked to hold everything together while trust in leadership falls apart. And tired people are vulnerable people. Not just emotionally, but strategically. You don't need a coup when apathy takes root. You don't need an invasion when disillusionment spreads. That's what makes this kind of conflict so effective. It relies on people giving up, tuning out, turning on each other. And once that kicks in, game over. But here's the other side of it, the part no one really talks about. Resilience is possible, but it doesn't come from government talking points or vague national campaigns. It comes from real, hard conversations, from transparency, from accountability, from leadership that actually earns trust rather than demands it. Because once people feel seen, once they understand why policies are happening, how threats are evolving, and where they fit into the response, they engage, they protect, they show up. And that's what hybrid warfare can't defeat. An engaged public. It can confuse systems, jam signals, exploit divisions. But it can't withstand a population that's informed, united, and skeptical in the right ways, not distrustful of each other, but demanding of their leaders. That's the inflection point Britain is sitting at right now. Will the country continue down a path where disinformation, bad optics, and broken communication lines lead to societal fatigue and collapse? Or will leadership course correct? Will the public start demanding better? Will the national strategy shift from resilience as a buzzword to resilience as a real, measurable, lived experience? Because the window is closing, and fast. Once trust is fully gone, rebuilding it isn't just hard, it's generational. And that's a cost no country can afford in the middle of a silent war. So here's the real question, not will Britain be attacked? It already is. The question is, will it recognize the attack for what it is before it's too late? Because in hybrid warfare, the most dangerous enemy isn't the one breaching your firewall. It's the one who convinces you nothing's wrong, that nothing's urgent, that silence is safety. But silence is a strategy. And the longer the country waits to confront the erosion of trust, the deeper the cracks will grow. So now it's on all of us, not just to demand answers, but to stay engaged. Because the minute we stop paying attention, that's when the enemy wins. Drop your thoughts below. Is the strategy of hybrid warfare already succeeding in Britain? Can public trust be restored? And if so, how? We want to hear what you're seeing, feeling, and thinking about all of this. If this helped connect some dots, hit the like button. Share it with someone who's still wondering what all these cyber alerts and recruitment controversies really mean. And if you want more no-spin, high-stakes breakdowns of the biggest global dramas shaping our future, subscribe. We're not here to sugarcoat it. We're here to call it what it is. Because in a world where the battle is for your belief, the first step in fighting back is seeing the game.